these rights, alienable rights in GDPR, Global Data Protection Regulation, how does that affect immutable data transactions? So for example, if I'm doing something on the blockchain and I'm choosing a blockchain which has immutable, in other words, you can't delete it, how does that work with that? See, I'm a little bit skeptical for a covert attack to privacy, or is it a bunch of people, let's be politically correct, a bunch of people who don't realise the implications of these regulations?
That's actually an interesting question, and the answer is that it lies in the wording of GDPR, which means that if you can connect it to a person, then you are non-compliant if you don't have the agreement to collect that data. So if you are putting data into blockchain, then if you, how do you say makulera?
Maculate, delete, erase, remove.
You encrypt, that's how I'd like to use it. You encrypt that particular block. So it's not removed from the blockchain and it doesn't affect the integrity of the blockchain, but it cannot be accessed. And if it cannot be accessed, it cannot be connected to a person. And therefore you end up being compliant within GDPR while still using blockchain. That is at least the latest that I have heard. I don't know if that answered your question.
A lot of blockchains will become open.
Microphone, please. But yeah, did you
it's a hard, well, it's a hard question because it's still being discussed within the EU. They haven't settled. Another one of those is transactions. Who actually owns the transaction? Is it the banks? Is it the card producer? Is it the card issuer? Who actually owns them? And that hasn't quite been settled yet. So I'm sure they will come to blockchain around April 20th or something like that and be like, wait 3 more months while we solve blockchain.
But
That's
which
usually
year?
how it goes.
Which year? I think maybe we don't have all these answers now. I'm pretty sure we will not have them 25th May next year. But after that, when the regulation comes into real life, then there will be lawyers, there will be potentially court cases, and then we will prove where do these boundaries exist and not. So in my opinion, the honest answer, sir, is we don't know yet.
Thank you very much for this, and thank you very much for your question. Har vi några fler frågor? Ja då, vi har ett gäng där.
Ni säger att det gäller mig som person, men inte som företag. Men gäller det mig som representant för ett företag?
Oj. Ja, varje medlem i ett företag är ju en person. Vad jag menar mellan person och företag är när det kommer till företagsuppgifter, organisationsnummer, accounts, sådana saker. Det ingår inte under GDPR. Men din personliga information, förmodligen i förhållande till ditt kanske företagsengagemang och sådana saker, det kommer falla under GDPR.
If I may, there's also another very important distinction in my opinion when it comes to companies versus privacy objects. My company cannot choose if I should be compliant or not based on being a company. I need to choose or understand that based on who or the data that I collect. Is that of some person out there? Then I have to comply. So as a company, I need to understand the difference between the company data that I have and process and the data subject, the person out there.
Yep.
And if one of those subjects, and especially for the American companies, one of those subjects happen to be an EU citizen, well then, you have to comply.
Thank you. We will take one more question from the audience.
Ja, jag funderar lite på det här, hur ni ser på att GDPR kommer att påverka den så kallade programmatiska annonsmarknaden. Vi kanske kommer till det lite senare idag, men jag tycker det är en intressant fråga ändå.
Nu måste jag byta till engelska. The programmable advertising market. Är det vi är inne på?
Japp. Japp.
I lean back to GDPR and say profiling and automated decisions kommer nog att komma in där. There's a lot of programmable information that is happening, smart contracts, obviously smart advertising. I think that there will be a lot of pop-ups in our life. Is this okay? Is this okay? Can we do this? Can we tell you that? Can we please email you? And it's going to take a while before the companies sort of figure out how to communicate with us, specifically regarding products like that.
I believe that we will have to change the way we do stuff. My personal worry is that my company, we collect your data, and then we try to run an algorithm on that to figure out how your security culture standing is. Which means that I need, after May 25th next year, explain how we do that. And then you need to say, well, yeah, I'm not fine with this.
Which
or,
means
or
you
even
need to
worse,
tell me your algorithm, and then
Exactly.
I need to get it, and then I need to say yes.
which means you need to understand it too, which
Exactly.
is like, okay, interesting. But back to your question. This morning I read a very interesting blog post from a UK lawyer, which goes into that particular question and then looks at the different articles inside GDPR and gives a much better answer than I can. What I suggest, I will put this on Twitter, and then you may retweet it or somehow you do these things, because it answers part of that question. The other part of the answer, I believe, is the same as I gave the sir over there. Future will tell.
The reason I asked the question was really that I'm kind of a content owner. So as a company, when I get approached by advertising companies, what kind of stuff do I need to cater for? But maybe we'll come to that later today a bit. So, Thank you.
Just before we end, I would like to ask one question in particular about culture. You see, a few days ago, or quite recently, there was an article published from the Kaspersky lab saying that young women often decide not to go into security professions at a young age already, just because the image of who a IT security person is often a man, it's a hacker or a geek, nerd. How would you perceive, or how would you advise this culture to be changed, perhaps, or from within or from outside?
I guess that's a question for me.
I believe so, but comments from both of you are welcome. Very
Well,
much.
you want to start?
So number one, the industry, so the security industry is well aware of this problem and has been attacking it its own way, especially driven in the US. Over here we see that mentoring, identifying these young students and then helping them to stay in those trainings, not because it's hard, but because typically, especially in the past, they were squeezed out. So changing that culture is important. The other one is providing these young people with mentors within the industry that can help them and especially give them some direction and provide a different perspective, different balance point to those hacker images or I'm such a bad person thing.
Well, maybe from the girl perspective then, I could take that perspective. Be that person. I think that a lot of reactions as a woman, as a young woman, is that I cannot do that or that will be frowned upon. And perhaps it is the American in me speaking, but screw that. You know, we're people just like anybody, and if we manage to stand up for ourselves, then it will be noticed. And with the Me Too movement that you spoke about earlier, it's not just sexual assault that's getting handled by this way. It's any type of bias towards anybody. And pretty much every part except white males, sorry guys, is getting handled right now. But, you know, you gotta just own the fact that you want to be in information security. And I think, I don't know about that study, because being a nerd and sort of, it's kind of cool these days.
Yeah, it's getting cool.
You
that's
know,
for sure.
the Big
It
Bang
is
Theory,
how-
it's kind of
Yeah.
cool these days.
But still, it is not as many as we need.
Yes.
And it is a lot of bias against females in this, and now I'm talking in this, the security industry. And I believe that we need to change this. We need to understand the perspective from both directions. We need to have dialogue, and we need to want to change this.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for your excellent speeches today. I think we shall applaud our speakers.